Not long ago, a woman walked into my office, 63 years old, sat herself down and pulled out a stock of lab results so thick it could double as a doorstop. She set it on my desk, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "I did everything right my whole life. Never smoked, never drank, ate oatmeal every morning, and here I am with high blood sugar, aching joints, and blood pressure that won't sit still." Meanwhile, my neighbor Dorothy, she's 77, smoked until her 50s, eats whatever she wants, and is out there weeding her garden like a teenager. Where's the fairness in that? You know what I told her? I said, fairness has nothing to do with it. The problem is that you spent decades doing what people assume is right, not what the science actually shows works. Those are two very different things. And that difference is exactly what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Health Manual. I'm not a professor, I'm not a researcher writing grants from a university office. I'm a working physician who sits across from real people every single day and tries to solve real problems, not textbook problems, but life problems. Over the years, thousands of patients have come through my door, and I've noticed something that puzzled me at first and eventually explained a great deal. The people who live the longest and feel the best aren't doing anything heroic. They're not eating exotic superfoods, running marathons, or swallowing fistfuls of supplements. They're doing simple things, the right things, consistently, every day, without obsession or suffering. Just habit. Meanwhile, the people who get sick young and stay sick are often doing things that sound right. They just aren't, or they're doing them wrong, or they're trapped in myths that have been passed down through generations and have absolutely nothing to do with real medicine. Today, I want to talk honestly. No ads, no fear tactics, no jargon about what actually extends a life. Not according to a textbook, according to experience, science, and everything I've witnessed with my own eyes. We're going to cover 5 big areas. First, genetics. Is it true that if your family had certain diseases, you're already out of luck? Let's find out. Second, food. Not diets, not trendy eating systems, just what to actually put on your plate after 50 to make your body thank you. Third, movement. And no, I'm not going to tell you to run. I'm going to explain why running isn't even the main event. Fourth, sleep and stress, the topic everyone dismisses until they're sitting in my office wondering where that blood pressure came from. And fifth, lab work, screenings, and how to build a relationship with your doctor that actually helps you instead of just generating diagnoses. Near the end, I'll tell you the story of a patient everyone had already written off. It's worth staying for. Let's get into it. Part 1. Genetics. Your cards, not your fate. There's a question I get more than almost any other. People sit down and say, "Doc, my family history is terrible. My dad died of a heart attack at 58. My grandmother didn't make it past 60. My genes are just bad. What am I supposed to do with that?" Every single time I want to say the same thing. Your genes are not a sentence. They're a hand of cards. How you play that hand, that's a completely different story. Here's the science. There was a landmark study conducted in Scandinavia on identical twins, people with 100% identical DNA. Researchers tracked them for decades. And what did they find? Genetics determines about 20 to 25% of your lifespan. Maximum 30. Everything else? Lifestyle, habits, environment, relationships, food, sleep, stress, that's the other 70%. That's the part you can actually influence, starting right now. Think of it this way. Imagine you inherited a house. Maybe it's a new build with solid bones and good wiring. Maybe it's an old place with crocked walls and a leaky roof. The starting conditions are different, sure. But if the person in the new house never fixes anything, never cleans, never maintains it, in 10 years it's a wreck. And if the person in the old house pays attention, patches what needs patching, takes care of it, that place will stand for another 50 years. Genes work the same way. I saw this play out with a patient named Robert Mitchell. He was 55 years old. His father had died of a heart attack at 52. Robert came in convinced he had 3 years left. We started working together, not overnight miracles, just small steps. He didn't quit smoking immediately, fine. We went from a pack a day to 10 cigarettes, then to 5, then 0. He started walking to the grocery store and back, not the gym, just the store. He swapped out the deli meats he'd been eating at dinner for fish twice a week. A year later, his cholesterol had dropped 1.5 points, his blood pressure stabilized, and he said something I'll never forget. For the first time in 10 years, I'm sleeping through the night. That wasn't genetics, that was choices. But I don't want to pretend genetics doesn't matter at all. It does. There are real hereditary predispositions to type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. If your family has that history, that's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to be a little more attentive, start monitoring a little earlier, and check in a little more often. I call this the traffic light system. If your family has serious illnesses in its history, you're on yellow. You're healthy, but you should be more watchful than someone whose grandmother lived to 95 without a complaint. Yellow doesn't mean stop, it means pay attention. Practically speaking, if diabetes runs in your family, check your fasting glucose and A1C every year after 40, not after you're already sick, before. If there were heart attacks or strokes, track your blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides. If there is cancer of a specific type, talk to your doctor about whether you need an individualized screening schedule. That's the grown-up approach to genetics. Not panic, not fatalism, just calm, intelligent attention.
Now, let me dismantle a myth that won't die. A lot of people, especially in older generations, believe that lineage determines everything. The Henderson men all have heart problems. The Kowalski women all get arthritis. This sounds like family wisdom, but there's a catch. Very often, what we're calling hereditary disease is actually hereditary habit. Think about it. If 3 generations of a family fry everything in lard, salt their food until it stings, and view exercise as something other people do, of course they all have high blood pressure. That's not genetics. That's a way of living that gets passed down alongside the family recipes. I remember a patient named Carol Henderson, 61 years old, type 2 diabetes, who told me, "Everyone in my family has it. My mom, my aunt, my older brother." I asked what a typical lunch looked like. White bread, pasta, sweet tea. Her mother had done the same. Same food, same disease. But the culprit wasn't her DNA. It was the sweet tea with 4 spoons of sugar and the pasta on pasta combination. We didn't start with medication. We started with her plate. Switched white bread to whole grain and only occasionally. Pasta only from whole wheat, half the portion size. Sweet tea replaced with unsweetened iced tea with a squeeze of lemon and a pinch of cinnamon. More vegetables, more protein, a small handful of nuts for a snack. 4 months later, her A1C dropped from 8.2 to 6.7. No starvation, no misery, just a different plate. Here's your first practical step. Take a sheet of paper, right now or after you finish reading, and write down what your closest relatives were diagnosed with. Mom, dad, grandparents. No medical terminology required. Dad had a heart attack at 63, grandma had diabetes. That's your genetic map. Bring it to your next doctor's appointment and ask for a personalized screening plan, not a generic one-size-fits-all checklist, but one built around your specific history. Part 2. Food. Not a diet, a system. Now, the topic that everyone loves and simultaneously has completely backwards. Food. Sometimes I think that if my patients simply stopped reading the internet and ate normally, I'd have 40% less work. I mean that literally, because the amount of garbage floating around under search terms like healthy eating after 50 is genuinely alarming. One website says cut out meat entirely, another says eat nothing but meat and that carbs are poison. A third says drink warm lemon water with baking soda every morning to prevent cancer. And there sits my patient, 60 years old, confused, scared, and genuinely unsure what to put on his fork.
Let's sort this out like adults. The first thing to understand, there is no single magic food that will extend your life. Not garlic, not turmeric, not buckwheat or kale or goji berries. Those are marketing campaigns. Beautiful and expensive ones, but marketing campaigns. Life is not extended by individual foods. Life is extended by a system of eating. What you put in your body day after day, month after month, year after year, that's what shapes your health. One cookout with burgers is nothing. 20 years of daily processed meat for breakfast is a problem. So what does the science actually say about eating after 50? Point 1, protein. This is the thing almost everyone neglects. After 50, the body starts losing muscle mass. The medical term is sarcopenia, but forget the word, remember the concept. Every year, your muscles get a little smaller and a little weaker. Left alone, by 70, you can lose up to 30% of your muscle mass. And muscle isn't just about looking strong. Muscle is your structural framework. It holds your spine upright, protects your joints, helps you get out of a chair, keeps your balance, keeps you from slipping on an icy sidewalk in January. Muscles are built from protein, and the vast majority of people over 50 eat a catastrophically small amount of it. Oatmeal for breakfast, a bowl of soup for lunch, potatoes and salad for dinner. Where's the protein? Nowhere to be found. Simple rule, every meal needs protein. Breakfast, eggs or cottage cheese. Lunch, fish or chicken. Dinner, legumes, cheese, or a piece of lean meat. You don't need enormous portions. A serving of protein is roughly the size of your palm. That size 3 times a day. And here's a myth worth killing. After 60, meat is dangerous. That's complete nonsense, and it came from a single study on processed meat that got ripped out of context and spread across the internet. Processed meat, hot dogs, sausage, deli cold cuts, smoked meats, yes, worth limiting. But regular meat, lean beef, chicken, turkey, fish, that's an excellent source of protein, iron, and vitamin B12, especially if you bake it, poach it, or braise it instead of frying it black. I think of a patient named Gerald Thornton, 67 years old, retired engineer, came in pale and exhausted, struggling to climb a flight of stairs. He told me he'd read 3 years earlier that meat was toxic, so he'd eliminated it completely. Whole grains, vegetables, fruit sounded healthy. His labs told a different story. Hemoglobin at 103, ferritin at the floor, B12 below normal range. His body was starving, despite eating 3 meals a day. We brought lean meat back, alternating with fish, a few times per week. 3 months later, he was a different man. Color in his face, energy, mood, all transformed. Point 2. Vegetables. I'm not going to pretend this is a revelation, but here's the thing. Most people, when I say eat more vegetables, picture punishment. Raw carrot sticks, tasteless cucumber slices, pale salad with no dressing. Forget all of that. Vegetables should taste good. Braised cabbage with carrot and onion, roasted zucchini with garlic, beets boiled and sliced with a drizzle of good oil and a pinch of salt. A thick, rich vegetable soup with fresh herbs. That's the goal. 2 reasons vegetables matter more than almost anything else: fiber and antioxidants. Fiber is like a scrub brush for your gut. It sweeps out excess cholesterol, toxins, and waste. Without fiber, your digestive system stagnates, and when that happens, everything suffers. Your skin, your immune system, your mood, even your sleep. Antioxidants protect your cells from oxidative damage. Imagine your cells slowly rusting, like iron left in the rain. Antioxidants are the protective coating that slows that process. And the more vivid the color of a vegetable, the more antioxidants it contains. Deep red beets, bright orange carrots, tomatoes, bell peppers, dark leafy greens like spinach. Load up on these. Practical step. Add 1 fist-sized portion of vegetables to lunch and dinner, not as a side dish to another side dish, instead of the second helping of bread or potatoes. Start with 3 days a week. Monday, braised vegetables at lunch. Wednesday, salad at dinner. Friday, vegetable soup. After a month, increase from there.
Point 3. What to reduce. I'm not going to tell you to give up everything you enjoy. I'm a realist. Someone who's been eating a certain way for 20 years won't and shouldn't rebuild their entire diet in a week. Dramatic change is stress, and stress is also an enemy of health. We'll get to that. But there are 3 things worth scaling back gradually. Not tomorrow, not starting Monday, just gradually. First, added sugar. Not the kind in an apple, the kind you stir into your coffee, spread in your jam, find hiding in your healthy flavored yogurt, your energy bars, your boxed juice. Do you know how much sugar is in 1 glass of apple juice from a carton? 5 or 6 teaspoons, same as a can of Coke. Surprised? Most people are. Sugar after 50 is a slow motion explosion. It spikes insulin. Insulin drives inflammation. Inflammation accelerates the aging of your blood vessels, your joints, your brain. This isn't fear-mongering, it's basic biochemistry. What to do? Start with your coffee or tea. If you take 2 teaspoons, drop to 1.5. The following week, 1. The week after, half. A month later, try without. Your palate adjusts, your taste receptors recalibrate. One of my patients, a retired school teacher named Patricia Walsh, 63, had been sweetening her tea with 3 teaspoons for 4 decades. She looked at me like I'd asked her to move to Mars. 3 months later, she came in laughing. I tried my old tea and had to spit it out. I can't believe I drank that. Taste habits change, just not overnight. Second, salt. Not elimination, reduction. The recommended daily limit is about 1 teaspoon. The average American eats 2 or 3 times that. Where does it come from? Bread, cheese, deli meat, canned goods, pickles. We barely notice it because it's baked into almost everything. Excess sodium retains water, raises blood pressure, and strains the kidneys and heart. After 50, when blood vessels have lost some of their youthful elasticity, this matters enormously. The fix: stop salting before you taste. Keep the shaker in the cabinet, not on the table. Use lemon juice, garlic, fresh herbs, and black pepper instead. You'll be amazed how much flavor is possible without the salt.
Third, ultra-processed foods. Deli meat, sausages, frozen dinner patties, packaged snacks, instant noodles. I understand the appeal. You come home tired, you slice something, you eat, done. But that convenience has a real price. These products are loaded with sodium, hidden sugars, trans fats, and preservatives, and they contain almost nothing useful. Study after study, tracking hundreds of thousands of people across multiple countries, consistently shows that high consumption of ultra-processed food is linked to earlier death and more chronic disease. I didn't invent this. It's the cumulative weight of the evidence. The swap is simpler than it sounds. Instead of deli meat, roast a chicken breast on Sunday and slice it for sandwiches all week. 25 minutes, 1 pan, 3 days of lunches. Instead of frozen patties, make a batch of simple homemade burger patties with ground beef and onion. Instead of a mayo-drenched pre-made salad, chop some vegetables and toss with olive oil. People think cooking at home is complicated. It isn't. What's complicated is managing the consequences of 30 years of processed food. That's the hard part. One more thing before we move on, and I want you to hold on to this. Eating after 50 isn't a diet. It isn't deprivation. It's a choice. Every time you stand at the refrigerator, you're choosing what to give your body for the next few hours. Each choice is a small step, either toward health or away from it. You don't need to change everything at once. Start with one thing. 1. Add protein to breakfast. Cut 1 spoon of sugar from your coffee. Replace the packaged cold cuts with home-roasted chicken. 1 step per week. 6 months from now, you won't recognize your plate. A year from now, you won't recognize your lab results. One quick note on water. Most people over 50 are mildly dehydrated most of the time, not because they're ignoring thirst, but because the thirst mechanism dulls with age. Your brain simply stops sending the signal reliably. The consequences: thicker blood, higher clot risk, sluggish kidneys, dry skin, constipation, headaches, foggy thinking. Simple fix: keep a water bottle in the kitchen. Every time you walk past it, take a few sips. You don't need to force yourself through 8 glasses at once, just small amounts frequently throughout the day. Part 3. Movement, the right kind, not the heroic kind. Movement is another topic buried under so much noise, so many extremes, and so many myths that I sometimes genuinely don't know whether to laugh or sigh. On one end, you have people who've decided that after 50, the body needs to be protected, rested, and spared from exertion. They've been told no strenuous activity by well-meaning relatives or poorly advised doctors, so they sit, and then wonder years later why their legs won't carry them, why their backs won't bend, why climbing to the second floor leaves them breathless. On the other end, you have people who've watched videos of 80-year-old marathoners and decided that 62 is the perfect time to run 10 kilometers, with arthritic knees and decade-old sneakers. No training, no warm-up. Result, injury, frustration, and the belief that exercise was never for them anyway. The truth, as usual, is in the middle, and it's simpler than either extreme. Here is the single most important thing I want you to take away from this section. The best physical activity is the one you will actually do every day. Not the most intense, not the most fashionable, the one that fits you and the one you won't quit after a week.
Let me explain why movement matters so fundamentally for longevity. There's a concept sometimes called sitting disease. It sounds almost comic, but it's a genuine physiological phenomenon. When a person sits more than 8 hours a day, and plenty of retirees do exactly that, moving between the television and the recliner, the body begins to malfunction. Metabolism slows, muscles weaken from disuse, blood circulates poorly, blood sugar rises because muscle, the body's primary consumer of glucose, has gone offline. It's like leaving a car in the garage for years. Nobody crashed it, nobody broke anything, but the battery dies, the oil thickens, the seals dry out. The car just stops working, not from use, but from neglect. What does science tell us? Research consistently shows that regular walking, just walking, not running, not jumping, reduces cardiovascular disease risk by approximately 30 to 35%. That's more protection than some medications provide. And you don't need a gym membership, a personal trainer, or special clothing. You need working legs and the desire to use them. How much? Ideally 30 to 60 minutes a day. But if you're currently doing nothing, start with 15. Seriously, 15 minutes. After breakfast, step outside and walk around the block. That's it. Next week, 20 minutes. The week after, 25. Your body will ask for more because it will feel the difference. I had a patient, Margaret Collins, a retired accountant, 66 years old, who came to me with back pain, poor sleep, and constant fatigue. Medications gave temporary relief. Physical therapy helped briefly. I asked how much she walked each day. She thought about it and said, maybe 10 minutes to the mailbox and back. 10 minutes in an entire day. We started simply, 20 minutes of walking every morning. Not fast, not uphill, just walking. After 2 months, the back pain had cut in half. After 4, her sleep normalized. After 6, she came in beaming and told me she'd walked 5 miles the previous day and felt wonderful. No medication change, no procedure, 20 minutes of morning walking. But walking alone isn't the complete picture. There's a second type of activity that's critically important after 50, and almost nobody talks about it: strength training. Wait, before you close this page, I don't mean barbells and a gym membership. I mean simple body weight exercises. We talked earlier about muscle loss with age. The only way to stop that process is to challenge your muscles. Not destroy them, just challenge them. That's a very different thing. What does this look like? Squats while holding the back of a chair, 10 repetitions morning and evening. Push-ups from the wall if the floor is too difficult. Calf raises while standing at the counter, 20 repetitions. A wall plank for 15 seconds, building up over time. These exercises take 10 minutes total, 10 minutes a day, but they accomplish something profound. They tell your muscles, you're needed, don't leave. And the muscles stay. Along with them, strength, balance, bone density, a faster metabolism, and the most underappreciated protection of all, fall prevention.
Falls deserve a separate mention. One of the leading causes of serious trauma after 65 is falling. A hip fracture isn't just painful, it means months in bed, loss of independence, depression. Many people never fully recover. The single best prevention isn't calcium supplements, it's strong leg muscles and solid balance. That means the very same chair squats and calf raises I just described. One more thing. Movement isn't just about the body, it's about the brain. When you move, your brain receives more blood, more oxygen, more fuel. The body releases natural mood-lifting compounds, genuine biological antidepressants. People who walk regularly suffer less from anxiety and depression. They have better memory. They think more clearly. I've lost count of how many patients told me that after starting a daily walk, they felt like the fog had lifted. I'm doing crossword puzzles faster, one man told me. Not magic, oxygen and blood flow. Your practical plan for the first 2 weeks. Week 1, every day after breakfast, walk for 15 minutes. Fast enough that you could hold a conversation but feel slightly winded, not faster. Week 2, add 5 minutes, now 20. And twice daily, morning and evening, do 3 exercises. 10 chair squats, 10 calf raises, 15-second wall plank. That's your foundation. Everything builds from there. One important note. If you have joint problems, especially knees or hips, any history of heart disease, shortness of breath at low exertion, or if you simply haven't been checked recently, see your doctor first. Get an EKG, check your blood pressure, then begin. My advice is never a substitute for a physician who knows you personally. Part 4. Sleep, stress, and the people around you. Here's the topic most people treat as irrelevant until it destroys them. Sleep and stress. So I didn't sleep great, so I'm a little stressed. I'm not made of glass. I hear some version of this constantly, especially from men. And then those same men end up in my office with blood pressure at 175/105 asking baffled where it came from. I'm not even under stress, they insist, but their bodies disagree. Let me tell you what's actually happening inside when you chronically undersleep or live in a sustained low-grade stress. Because the outside can look fine, just tired, just irritable, while on the inside there's a 4-alarmed fire. When you experience stress, your body releases cortisol, the fight or flight hormone. In evolutionary terms, this was life-saving. It prepared you to sprint away from a predator. The problem is that your brain can't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a fight with a neighbor, anxiety about your adult children, or watching the evening news. To your nervous system, it's all a threat, and it triggers the same chemical cascade, cortisol. Short-term cortisol is useful, it mobilizes you. But when cortisol stays elevated for months and years, which is exactly what happens in chronic modern stress, it begins to erode. What does it erode? Blood vessel walls, immune function, the lining of your stomach, your memory, your sleep architecture. Think of it this way. Imagine you pressed the gas pedal on your car and never released it. The engine screams, the RPMs climb into the red zone. You can run it like that for a minute. For 10 minutes, the engine overheats. For an hour, it burns out. Chronic stress is a gas pedal you've been holding down for years, and then you're surprised the engine is failing. So what actually helps? Not just relax, that's the most useless advice in medicine. You can't relax on command any more than you can fall asleep on command. The harder you try, the worse it gets. But there are specific, practical things that genuinely work. First, breathing. This sounds almost insultingly simple, but here's the physiological fact. A slow, extended exhale, longer than your inhale, literally biologically lowers cortisol levels, not metaphorically. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for calm and recovery. The technique: inhale through your nose for a count of 4, hold for 2, exhale through your mouth for a count of 6 to 8, slow. 5 cycles, 3 minutes.
Do this morning and evening, and anytime you feel yourself beginning to boil. Within 2 weeks, you'll notice the difference. Within a month, you won't want to stop. I had a patient, Frank Kowalski, a retired factory foreman, 61 years old, who came in with serious insomnia, 3 or 4 hours a night. He'd been taking sleeping pills for years. They worked, but mornings left his head feeling like wet cement. I taught him the breathing technique. He was openly skeptical. Doc, with all due respect, breathing? I came here for medicine. 3 weeks later, he called. I don't know how it works, but I'm asleep in 15 minutes now. Used to take me 2 hours. A former skeptic converted by breath. Second, a consistent schedule. I know, this sounds like something from a pediatrician's pamphlet, but after 50, a regular schedule isn't optional, it's physiology. Your body functions like a precision clock. It loves predictability. When you wake and sleep at the same time every day, give or take 30 minutes, your brain calibrates every internal process to that rhythm. Melatonin production arrives on schedule. Cortisol drops appropriately in the evening. Digestion synchronizes. Everything runs as designed. But when you're up until 11 on weekdays, midnight on Thursdays, 1 a.m. on Fridays because of late night television, and 10 a.m. on Sundays to recover, your brain is lost. It doesn't know when to be awake, when to sleep, when to initiate the overnight repair cycle. Choose a bedtime, not whenever I get tired, a specific time. Say 10:30 or 11 p.m. Commit to it every night, including weekends. Yes, including weekends. The first couple of weeks are difficult. Then your body adjusts, sleep deepens, and mornings become genuinely easier. Third, screens before bed. I'll be direct about this. Your phone before sleep is poison for your sleep quality, not because the content is bad, but because the blue spectrum light it emits suppresses melatonin production. Your brain sees that light and interprets it as daylight. It disables the falling asleep mechanism. Rule: no screens for 1 hour before bed. No phone, no tablet, no laptop. Replace with a book, a real conversation, the breathing exercise, or a gentle walk around the block. I know many people watch television to unwind, but the paradox is that television, especially news or heated debate programs, doesn't quiet the brain, it revs it up, especially the news, especially at night.
Fourth, and this may be the most important thing in this entire section, human connection. I'm serious. The longest running study on human health in history, from Harvard, tracked people for over 75 years. The headline finding had nothing to do with food, exercise, or vitamins. It was this: people who had warm, close relationships lived longer and got sick less. Loneliness kills, and not metaphorically. Chronic loneliness in terms of health impact is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I see this every week. Someone comes in who's been retired for years. The kids have their own lives in other cities. A spouse has passed or left. Days alone. The television as constant background noise. And this person has everything wrong. Elevated blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, insomnia, heart palpitations, dizziness. Sometimes the labs are barely out of range, but they feel terrible because they're lonely. And the body communicates that the only way it knows how, through symptoms. What to do? Don't wait for someone to come to you. Call first, visit a neighbor, sign up for a class, drawing, Nordic walking, a choir, a book club, go to the library, volunteer somewhere, walk a dog, yours or a neighbor's, borrow one if you have to. These things sound trivial. They are not trivial. They are years of life. I had a patient named Raymond Briggs, 71 years old, widowed, living alone. He came in with a long list of complaints. Nothing catastrophic in the labs. I asked him, almost offhandedly, whether he had anyone to really talk to. He paused for a long moment, then quietly, "No, not in about 2 years." I referred him to a senior wellness group at the community center, retirees who meet twice a week for light exercise and then coffee. He went reluctantly. 3 months later, he came to his appointment to brag rather than complain. Same medications, same diet. The only change, he wasn't alone anymore. That was the treatment. Your practical step for today: call someone you haven't spoken to in a while, a friend from years ago, a sibling, a former colleague, just to say hello.
5 minutes, no agenda. That call is preventative medicine that no supplement can replicate. Part 5. Lab work, checkups, and getting the most from your doctor. There are two types of patients when it comes to medical screenings. Type 1, I get a full panel done every year, I see 6 specialists, I have a binder full of results, and I'm still terrified. Type 2, I haven't seen a doctor since the Reagan administration and I intend to keep it that way. Both approaches are problems. Let's find the sensible middle. Why get screened if you feel fine? Here's why. Many serious conditions, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, certain cancers, osteoporosis, produce no symptoms whatsoever in their early stages. You can walk around with a fasting glucose of 140 and feel perfectly well. You can have blood pressure at 155 and have no idea. You can have cholesterol levels approaching dangerous territory with 0 symptoms, and then suddenly, a heart attack, a stroke, kidney failure, not out of nowhere, out of years of silent buildup that could have been caught with a simple blood draw. After 50, once a year, here's what's worth doing. A complete blood count, checks for anemia, infection, and blood cell abnormalities, fasting glucose and hemoglobin A1C. Together, these give a current and 3-month average of blood sugar, a full lipid panel, not just total cholesterol, but LDL, the problematic kind, HDL, the protective kind, and triglycerides. Total cholesterol alone can look fine while the breakdown is alarming, so get the full picture. Creatinine and BUN for kidney function. Kidneys are silent workers that give no warning until they've lost a significant portion of their capacity. Vitamin D. Deficiency is surprisingly common, especially in northern states with limited sun exposure for half the year, and low vitamin D means weaker bones, weaker immunity, lower mood, and higher fracture risk. TSH for thyroid function. Thyroid disorders are often overlooked, particularly in women, and become more common with age.
Additionally, if you're 50 or older and haven't had a colonoscopy, schedule one. I know, nobody's idea of a good afternoon, but colorectal cancer caught early is nearly always treatable. Caught late, the story changes dramatically. One colonoscopy every 5 to 10 years is your insurance policy. Women, mammography every 2 years and a gynecologic exam with pap smear. Men, discuss PSA testing for prostate cancer with your doctor. It isn't right for everyone, but it's worth a conversation. This list is not overwhelming. Most of these tests are covered by insurance or available at low cost. Together, they create a picture that can catch a problem while it's still manageable, before you ever feel sick. Now, about your relationship with your physician. I know this can be a painful subject. Waiting rooms that devour your morning, rushed appointments, the sensation of not being heard, a list of prescriptions with no explanation. I understand why people avoid doctors. But here's the thing. Your doctor is a tool, and the results you get depend significantly on how you use that tool. Come prepared. Write down your concerns before the appointment, on paper, old-fashioned as that sounds. It works because in the exam room, you'll get anxious, you'll forget half of what you plan to say, and you'll walk out realizing you never mentioned the thing that bothered you most. Write it down. Bring the list. Ask specific questions. Do I need to check my blood sugar? Could this medication be causing this side effect? What are my alternatives? Your doctor is not a mind reader. They can't answer questions you don't ask, but they will answer the ones you do. And ask why. If a test is ordered or a medication is prescribed, you have every right to ask, why this test? Why this drug? What are the side effects? This is your body and your health. If a doctor takes offense at informed questions, find a different doctor. A good physician welcomes engaged patients. They get better outcomes. Practical step. Start a health notebook. A plain spiral notebook works perfectly. Page 1, your chronic conditions, if any. Page 2, your current medications and dosages. Page 3, lab results, dated, what was tested, what came back. Update it after every appointment. After a year, you'll have a complete picture of your own trends. Any doctor who sees it will be grateful, and you'll be able to see for yourself whether things are improving. The story I promised you. About 18 months ago, a man named Dennis Hartley walked into my office.
He was 58 years old, a retired industrial engineer who'd spent his career at a manufacturing plant. His wife had brought him because, left to his own devices, he would never have come. Nothing good ever happens when you go to the doctor, he'd told her. His numbers that day were a portrait of accumulated neglect. Blood pressure 178 over 108, fasting glucose at 7.6, total cholesterol 7.4. He weighed 242 pounds at 5'10". He was winded going up one flight of stairs. His snoring was so severe his wife had moved to the guest room 2 years before. His knees ached, he had heartburn every evening like clockwork. He sat in the chair across from me, arms crossed, and asked completely sincerely, "So, Doc, how long do I have?" I looked at him for a moment, then I said, "Dennis, you have as long as you decide to have. Because everything on this chart, every single number, is not a disease, it's a consequence of how you've been living for the past 20 years, and most of it is reversible." He didn't believe me, but his wife did, and she's a determined woman.
Month 1. We removed hot dogs and deli meat from the house, replaced with baked chicken and canned fish. He switched from 2 sugars in his coffee to 1. Bedtime snack of chips and cheese became Greek yogurt. He didn't love it, but he did it. Month 2. Every morning after breakfast, he walked around his neighborhood for 15 minutes. The first week, he came back genuinely breathless. By week 3, he was going 25 minutes and barely noticed. Month 3. No more bottled juice. Just water, coffee, and unsweetened tea. He was openly astonished that plain water was drinkable. "I thought water was what you added to things," he told me. Month 4. We added simple exercises, chair squats and calf raises, 10 minutes in the morning. He called them humiliating the first week. By week 4, he was adding repetitions on his own. Month 5. His wife started roasting vegetables, zucchini, peppers, onions, garlic. He'd been a confirmed carnivore his entire life. He ate the vegetables, then asked for seconds. Month 6. We redrew everything. Weight 225 pounds, 17 pounds gone. Blood pressure 134 over 86. Fasting glucose 5.3. Cholesterol 5.9. The heartburn had disappeared. His knees still bothered him, but less. His wife was back in their bedroom. He sat there reading the results, and he was quiet for a while. Then he looked up and said, "I thought I was done. I thought this was just what getting old looked like. I didn't know you could go the other direction." That sentence, that right there is the reason I made this article. The only thing I want you to remember, if you take nothing else from everything we've covered today, take this. Longevity is not one grand heroic act. It is thousands of small decisions made every day. A plate of roasted vegetables instead of another helping of chips, that's a decision. 20 minutes of walking instead of another hour in front of the television, that's a decision. A glass of water instead of a can of soda, a decision. A phone call to an old friend instead of another evening alone, a decision. A slow breath instead of a sharp reaction, a decision. Each one is small, invisible almost, laughably modest, but accumulated over months and years, they are the difference between an old age spent watching others live and an old age spent living. Playing with grandchildren, traveling, tasting food, remembering names, getting up in the morning looking forward to the day. That is possible. I've seen it, more times than I can count. Quick recap before we close. Genetics accounts for 20 to 30%. The other 70 to 80 is yours. Learn your family history and share it with your doctor. Food is a system, not a sentence. More protein, more vegetables, less added sugar, less sodium, fewer processed products. One change per week. Movement is life. Walking plus simple strength exercises, 15 to 20 minutes a day to start. Your body will ask for more. Sleep and stress aren't minor inconveniences. A consistent schedule, a simple breathing practice, human connection, these are as powerful as any medication. Annual screenings after 50. Catch problems while they're quiet, not after they've gotten loud. and bring a notepad to your next doctor's appointment. You are not a victim of your genes, your age, or your past choices. Every day is a new opportunity to make a decision that your future self will be glad you made. Take care of yourself. Don't put it off until later. Later arrives faster than you think. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and here's to your good health. Goodbye.